So what is the definition of Wen Bing? Wen Bing, of course, we all know, is a kind of like a externally contracted kind of disorder characterized by fever. So every Wen Bing pattern, there should be fever. So because it is by pathogenic warm. So aside fever, maybe if it is accompanied by sort of wind, they would say warm and wind, or that means wind warm. If it is accompanied by summer heat, then we will say summer heat warm. If it is accompanied by dampness, we can say it is actually damp warm. If it is actually characterized by dryness in the autumn, so we will say it is actually autumn dryness warm, or maybe 秋燥. Beside that, of course, there are many schools in Wen Bing, of which today we will highlight it. And so the traditional thinking of Wen Bing is actually associated with a range of acute heat-related febrile disease. And of course, that's why the first one ever been mentioned is in Huangdi Neijing, which is found in also mentioned in Nanjing and Shanghanlun. So these early classic medical texts actually contain fragmented description of Wen Bing, but not in very much detail. And so therefore, people do think that even nowadays, I was very frustrated when I was in China. Some of the practitioners says, well, I think Wen Bing as a subject is finished because it is only good for epidemic infectious disease. And now, because that has been under control, and besides those people, they are already in hospital, you as a practitioner, you will never see this kind of patients. Wrong, because some of the Wen Bing's formulas can be very effectively used to treat a whole host of miscellaneous disease, such as autoimmune diseases, and such as anything. So that's why later on, Robin and I, we will write the book on formula patterns, not so much on the actual main text about seasonal Wen Bing. It's basically supposing what is the formula pattern. The formula pattern is defined that it gives you a parameter of some defined symptoms and signs. And then therefore at a particular given time, and if that time that your presentation, your patients fit in with this kind of indication in that formula, then you can use it. And I can cite one example, such as like Yin Qiao San. Now, Yin Qiao San, it is actually for Feng Wan, which is wind warm. In the springtime, the patients is actually more or less presented with fever, presented with sore throat, presented with throating and rapid pulse, and the tongue tip is red, but not the whole tongue body, with thin white tongue coating. There's aversion to wind, and then there is sometimes sore throat. So they said, well, Yin Qiao San govern. Now, it does not mean that Yin Qiao San can only be used for Feng Wan, because if anyone, say for instance, you have some sort of skin disease, dermatitis, and which takes on the characteristic of a wind, like say urticaria, for instance. If you scratch it, and then it becomes itchy and the lump come up, but sometimes it's just all over the body, just taken the characteristic of wind. So you can use this Feng Wan Yin Qiao San very effectively. So I cite another example, Qiao He Tang, which is in the Wu Jitong's actually in the Qiu Zhao, which is autumn dryness. And Wu Jitong's own word, he says, Qing Qiao Bu Li, that means the clear orifice is inhibited. And there is tinnitus, there is swollen gums, there is red eyes, and there is sore throat. Now, what is the pathogenesis of this? We know is dryness, but the dryness is actually transformed into fire. So you use a formula called Qiao He Tang. Now, Qiao He Tang is very simple, made up of 5 herbs. Yin Qiao, which is the word Qiao. Bo He, Jie Geng, Gan Qiao, Zi Zi, and then also the mung bean skin, 绿豆皮. 绿豆皮 is actually very, very cooling. And so you can see within the 巧合汤 there is 栀子. Now, instead of using 栀子, 豆子, as in Shanghanlun, to vent the heat out, because the patient is vexed, is irritable, they use an acrid cool herb such as 薄荷, which also has the property of venting and out-thrusting the heat out. So any heat that is actually been constrained inside, you can use 巧合汤. And what is this good for? I have used this for recurrent oral ulcer, mouth ulcers. And because of the constrained heat inside and the patient is thirsty, obviously some fluid damage, then you can use that. You can use it for tinnitus. You can use it for, say, kind of heat causing headaches and things like this. Say for headaches, redness in the eyes, you can use 巧合汤 and you can add something such as 夏枯草 and 苦丁茶. For sore throat, you can actually add something like 牛蒡子 and 黄芩. And you can even add 玄参, because 玄参 is very good. Okay, so we are going to, more importantly, the focus, apart from giving you the normal sort of Wen Bing text of Feng Wan, we will actually highlight some of the important formula and how these formulas can be used clinically to treat a whole lot of miscellaneous diseases. Because why? It shares the same pathogenesis, it has the same indication. So in Shanghanlun, they are already doing that, a formula pattern of Wulingshan, a formula pattern of Ma Huang Tang, etc., etc. So the formula pattern, why do we want to emphasize on the formula pattern? Because the formula pattern has a fixed indication and it doesn't change. So therefore, but the patients and the disease stage changes. So if at a certain given time that the patient is presented with something, symptoms and signs that fit into that particular formula, and it will work like magic.